Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Tuesday, July 11th. Over the next few days, we will see some changes to the weather. We still have some gusty winds and dry conditions over the southern half of the Great Basin today. We could have enough moisture push north into parts of southern Utah to see an isolated thunderstorm or two. Could be anywhere in the mountains of southern Utah and push further east and weaken during the evening hours. In any case, coverage will be very isolated, but certainly things have been dry and windy down in southern areas. Winds decrease on Wednesday, and by Thursday we start to heat up as a ridge builds in the west, so we will have some hot temperatures building in the south, and these will be expanding north as we go through the weekend. Fuels are still critical only over the southern areas of the Great Basin, but likely this critical line will be shifting north as we go into the weekend. Over the last 24 hours, only a few isolated thunderstorms near the northern border of the GAC. Otherwise, we saw a light initial attack yesterday across the Great Basin. However, we did have one larger fire in eastern Utah that was near 500 acres. Over the last 1 to 2 weeks, we've continued with only isolated thunderstorms over the northern half of the geographic area, most areas seeing below normal precipitation, especially in the lower elevations, and still continued very dry conditions over southern areas. Looking at our ERCs currently, they are certainly on the rise and have reached normal over parts of the lower elevations of southern Idaho and are now above normal and even approaching some historical records for the time of year over southern areas. However, this is the time of year when ERCs would normally start to be winding down, as you can see by the maximum line. However, that is obviously not the case this year with the drier conditions, so ERCs will continue to climb over southern areas. The satellite loop from this morning shows a flat ridge of high pressure dominating the Great Basin with the center down south over southern New Mexico. We do have troughs moving still across the Pacific Northwest and northern Idaho, so this again will kind of keep that gradient a little bit tighter for those gusty winds the next couple of days. But otherwise, the ridge off the west coast will really start to amplify going towards the weekend with very hot temperatures expected. So for today, more of the same. The only difference is a little bit of moisture over southern areas of the geographic area. Again, could be enough with the hot temperatures and the decrease in winds a little bit to produce some isolated thunderstorm activity. Otherwise, winds today will be borderline. We still left high risk in today, although we will see those gusts around 30 miles per hour. But we could see some of those breezy winds in areas that we did have some of those new fire starts. The relative humidity for today will be a little bit elevated in the south, above 15% as that moisture works in, which again should be enough for some isolated thunderstorm activity. Otherwise, single-digit relative humidity across Nevada and teens up north. You can see the wind picture. We do have some breezy winds, but most of those gusts in the 20s to up possibly around 30 miles per hour over the southern two-thirds of Utah into southern and eastern Nevada. Also some breezy winds across Idaho into Wyoming. As we move into Wednesday, more of the same. We might start to push that moisture out of the southern areas, so we may not see as much potential tomorrow for thunderstorms. Still some breezy winds, but not quite as gusty as what we'll see today. So you can see our low to moderate fire potential. Relative humidity will drop a little bit to closer to 12 to 15% in the south as that moisture moves further east. And those winds, again, remain breezy with most gusts in the 20s. So again, no high risk. However, we will see the zephyr winds picking up again over the Sierra front and more moderate winds up north. As we move into Thursday, the ridge starts to build in the south, so very dry conditions still expected with, again, you'll see that drying push further north with more areas of brown on the 7-day fire potential product. Relative humidities drop into the single digits across much of Nevada and Utah with those increasing temperatures. Troughs moving by to the north still will provide some wind for Idaho into Wyoming and even down into northern Utah. No real change to the 3-day precipitation. Dry conditions expected with the exception of a few blips of isolated thunderstorms. Depending on where that lightning starts, we could see a few drops of rainfall down in the far south, but certainly nothing significant. As we move into Friday and the weekend, this is where the main story with the heat really starts. The very strong ridge off the west coast starts to build north, so we will see increasing temperatures Friday and continued drying. And again on Saturday and into Sunday, still very hot temperatures as those ridge builds in, so we will see a lot more moderate fire potential with more significant changes to our fuels. We will need to watch these areas of northwest Nevada into southwest Idaho. With this trough off the northwest coast and the strong ridge in the southwest, we could see enough moisture to work its way in around the ridge coming up from central California to produce a few isolated lightning strikes. So again, that's just something we'll have to watch. Right now it looks very minor, but certainly after hot temperatures and drying conditions, that could be a concern, especially if the lightning's on the drier side. So we will kind of watch that area going into the weekend. And then again, early next week, Monday, a little bit more moisture rotates around that ridge. So still hot temperatures, but again, a better potential for some isolated thunderstorms. And that will be something we'll watch for northern areas of the Great Basin. Otherwise, definitely some moisture could move into southern areas, but right now it's looking to stay south. Over the next week, again, temperatures will really peak, especially this weekend. We will see temperatures rise 10 to 12 degrees across western and southern areas of the Great Basin as we go into the weekend. So we could see temperatures not quite at records in the far west. Records for Reno are 108 for this time of year, but very close, very hot temperatures for Nevada. And then we will see Utah heating up as well, especially as we get into the early part of next week. And temperatures in the upper 90s, even up into the Boise area. No change in our 7-day precipitation. Anything we see thunderstorm-wise will be extremely isolated and produce only light amounts of precipitation. And then the July 18th to 24th time period, still showing warmer and below normal precipitation for the Great Basin. Once we get towards the end of this period, towards July 22nd, 23rd, we could see that moisture move its way up into Utah, some of that monsoon moisture. So it definitely delayed this year, but there is still some potential that the models are holding on to for later in July for that moisture. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.